Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zeus Backstage Episode 1. And today I am backstage with the one and only Mr. Kephfas. How you doing, man?
Hey, Zeus, doing well. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me for your first episode. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for being a guest. This is our first episode, guys. Brand new channel. So if you do stumble across this video, please hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment with your thoughts as we discuss this week in wrestling. I think there's only one place to start, man. Should we start with SmackDown?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We're recording this on Saturday the 14th, so we are 24 hours clear of SmackDown. What do you think of the show in general? We'll get to the big talking point, but what did you think of the show overall?
Yeah, the show was pretty bland, actually. I actually, watching it yesterday, I forgot there was even going to be a segment between Randy and Cody. Not because I wasn't looking forward to the segment. I just kind of got lost in the episode preceding that segment. It was very bland. I thought it was even for SmackDown standards. I feel like very uneventful. A lot of filler content. But when we got to the last segment, then it really did pick up. It actually, I feel like it actually revived the entire show yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. And I think you mentioned there, like, that's the standard for SmackDown. And it's kind of been that way for a long time, hasn't it? There's just not a lot interesting happening. A couple of things here or there, but nothing really consistently to get our teeth into this close to WrestleMania, which is probably more of a problem than it was maybe, 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah. And well, the thing is, like, even with the Cody Randy scheduled segment, when they came out to do the signing, I didn't really, a signing and the way it started, I didn't really think the show itself was going to be rehabilitated by that segment. Based on previous signings, there might be a little scuffle or something, but I didn't think going into it, I didn't think that the segment itself was going to rehabilitate the entire episode yesterday. So I didn't have high hopes at all.
No, I agree. And I think that when I saw it was going to be a contract signing specifically, that sort of lowered my excitement because of what you said. We know how these things go. They're usually not very eventful.
Right.
But yeah, we'll talk about that, I guess now. So yeah, we did have the contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. And this has obviously been probably the biggest talking point in wrestling the last 7 days, ever since Cody won the title back from Drew last Friday. The YouTube dislikes, the differing opinions on what should be the direction going into WrestleMania, who should be involved, should it be Drew, should it be multi-man, all this stuff. And they really came into this show needing to absolutely kick this off with a bang. And I think they did. I think this was something that I wasn't expecting. It was very graphic, and like you said on X, it's kind of something that we need to see more of. And I'm happy that we're getting to see this Randy Orton back after he absolutely destroyed Cody Rhodes last night. And it was, it was getting to the point where I thought that we're not used to seeing this level of violence in WWE, that when it does happen, then it really sticks out, doesn't it? And I think, like you said, it kind of revived what was another otherwise lifeless show. But what do you think of how everything went down, how it was put together, and how you felt coming out of the segment?
Yeah, no, I think, there are other promotions that obviously, utilize these turns or this level of violence more frequently than the WWE does. And I agree, a lot of people, like, even on my post, people are like, if it's only meaningful because we don't see it often, which I agree with. I also agree, though, that we should be seeing it a little more often, at least. We shouldn't be going, we shouldn't be having a heel turn of this caliber once a year or once every couple of years. We should be seeing it maybe a couple of times a year. It keeps things fresh, and it definitely opens the doors to more creative booking decisions that might come out of it. With regard to this segment, I thought it was really well done. I think the follow-up is going to be very critical, just like how Cena and Cena's turn against Cody, the follow-up was non-existent. And so I think it was really hard to rehabilitate that turn. I do think with this one, what's going to determine the efficacy, I guess, of the turn itself is what we see Randy and Cody do with it over the next few weeks. As of right now, the turn doesn't really make any sense, and that's fine because it just happened. What I'm hoping doesn't happen is it's like a Brock turn on Cody, which years later we still don't really have a reason or an answer as to why it happened. So I don't think that's going to be the case this time around because it is WrestleMania season, and Randy and Cody do have a history. But I'm very curious to see like where this goes over the next couple of weeks. What prompted the turn? Is Randy going to maintain this killer heel persona, or is he going to pull back a little bit? I'm very curious to see like where this ends up ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with regard to that, whether, what's Randy's direction going into, next week and heading into WrestleMania, is he obviously did so much last night in terms of, the content that we saw. It's like, what else can he do? And so I think we kind of really need to kind of get into the more story elements, the more kind of talking, the explanation. One thing I noticed was, when Cody sat down and he was all happy and he wanted Randy to sign the contract, and Randy hesitated. And he said, "You don't understand. This was supposed to be Drew." And I think what's happening here is that Randy was going to do this to Drew McIntyre because he was counting on Drew McIntyre being the champion. And he's made his mind up that he's going to do absolutely everything. He's going to let the voices in, so to speak, to get that championship. And now it just happens to be Cody in that spot instead of Drew. And so I think we may kind of see was it like a conflicting thing for Randy? Did he just he didn't want to do it to Cody, but he wants that champion. And one thing I love about this is that one thing I think we miss in wrestling a lot is seeing wrestlers really value the championship, like really make them obsessed with it. It really kind of uplifts the title itself. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I actually I didn't even consider that. That's a very profound observation. It could be that. On that, on that same token, it seems like this whole Drew versus Cody thing. I'm not pivoting to that, but it's just building on what you said. It seems like this whole Drew versus Cody thing is leading into multiple storylines. Like, so I could see some of the characters turning on Cody now. You see Sami Zayn, and obviously you just saw Randy Orton turn on him. So yeah, I wonder how much of it is like a psychological commitment to, destroying Drew that is now being projected onto Cody. I wonder how much of it is that, but that's a very interesting observation there. Yeah.
Well, I guess it'll be the proof will be in the pudding next week, because I think we've done stage one, very good, and then
Right.
it kind of makes SmackDown must see television, doesn't it? Just even just for these two guys,
right? Yeah, yeah. I think again, this is the Orton that we know. This is the Orton that we remember. I saw a lot of comments on X saying, "Oh, you don't know ball. Orton's always been a heel with a smile." I mean, sure, you can say that, and now you could say that in hindsight, but I don't think anyone, since his return at War Games, I don't think anyone thought Orton was a heel until last night. I mean, he wasn't doing anything heelish. He was stroking other characters' egos, and I mean, he's had multiple segments with Javon. He's had multiple segments with Cody. He's had multiple segments with a ton of other like up and coming guys and existing characters, and he's never indicated that he's been a heel over the last couple of years at least. So this was definitely a heel turn. And how it's going to be received, I'm very curious to see how that's going to be received as well. So over the long run.
Yeah, he's one of the best heels ever to work in the company, and we've seen that over the years. And I agree. I don't think we've seen this visceral Randy Orton since he's come back. He's been a bit of a smart ass, a bit cheeky, a bit sarcastic, but that's just what he's good at.
Right.
And he's good at a lot of things, but he's also really good at being a really evil, um, just vicious heel to the
Yeah.
point where he kind of blurs the lines between. He makes it look like it's actually happening. He makes it look real. He always really good at that, Randy Orton. And
Yeah.
we haven't seen that side of him definitely since he's come back from War Games. And I think it's time because obviously he came back from a really bad injury, and obviously you're going to bring him back as a face for that time. So I think it's now time that he shows this other side, and it's just going to make the television more entertaining.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The one thing that it does change for me though is who the winner is
Mm,
projected to be. At first, I was putting Randy at like a 40% chance of winning to Cody's 60%. Now I guess, I think it's whoever wins that match. Let's just say it's a night one match, which I think it is, main event. Whoever wins that match, I think, is going to determine who wins the night two main event as well.
okay.
But it's for me right now. I'm still leaning towards Cody winning, especially after this turn. But it does add a little bit of variability to it because now you have clearly defined roles, at least in that matchup. You have a heel and a face. And I don't know what direction they're going to go ultimately. I have no idea at this point.
And that's good, isn't it? That's what we
Yeah.
want. We want
Yeah.
we want unpredictability. We want to, predictable isn't always bad, but it's really good when you can just go into a show as a form of entertainment and think, I wonder what's going to happen next. We get that with TV, films,
Yep.
and it needs to be the same with wrestling. So I really like
And,
that aspect of it as well.
and in that regard too, like, you asked earlier, you brought up Drew.
Mhm.
I was one of the people who didn't want Cody to win the belt back. And
Yeah.
part of me still doesn't, although yesterday changed things a lot because now it it helps me see the bigger picture, and Randy, it helps me root for Randy at a much higher level even. But it had Drew gone on to WrestleMania against Randy, I think it would be safe to say that Randy would have won that matchup. With Cody going into there, I think it adds a little more variability, where we can't really predetermine who we think will come out of WrestleMania
Mhm.
as the winner. So I think now in hindsight, I think it was a good move. I think it was a good move for the sake of Randy's character.
Yeah, and I think a lot hinged on last night, and I think they've successfully navigated last night very well. So, we'll
Yeah,
have to see what they do next. And they've got 5 weeks. Is that going to
right.
be too long, too short? I guess we'll see. It's all about pacing now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I wanted to ask you something. So, I've seen a lot of stuff on social media referencing the fact that this is the third year in a row where somebody is turned heel and beat the crap out of Cody Rhodes leading into WrestleMania. Obviously, the first year with The Rock was fantastic. Second year was Cena, not so good. Third year, Randy Orton. I guess we'll see. I personally think it's going to be a lot better than the Cena one. But there's some people saying that this is exactly the same as last year's Cena's heel turn. And I disagree with it for a few reasons. One of which being that John Cena's heel turn was more on the fans rather than Cody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this kind of, the fact that it has been 3 years in a row, this sort of thing has happened? What are your thoughts on it and how you think it differs this year?
Yeah, I mean, with the bloodline turn, that was very well executed. The Cena turn, you're right, it was mostly against the fans. It was against all the people who Cena thought had been betraying him over the course of his career. I think it was still a very well executed turn, but I think the follow up was obviously not very strong. Um, am I getting background noise? See,
Oh, you're fine.
okay. The turn itself, so the Cena turn itself, I think was executed fine. It was just again the follow up. This one, I believe this one was executed pretty strongly as well, but it's too soon. It's too soon to say, hey, it's identical to the last couple of years. Yeah, it's the same trajectory, perhaps a different why behind it. This one seems like maybe it's going to be a voices in the head angle or maybe a legacy angle. We don't know yet. But I'm okay with the thing is, if you have a good story, it's okay to repeat the story.
I agree.
Wrestling is repetitive. I mean, wrestling is literally just decades on end of repeated stories with different characters and maybe a couple of nuances or variables that weren't present before. So I disagree with a lot of the people that are saying, hey, it's just the same exact thing year after year. I respect their opinion. They're entitled to their opinion. But for me, I think it is a little bit different, and the follow-up will determine just how different it is. I don't see an issue with things repeating. I really don't. As long as they're executed well enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like, if it's if it's repetition, then if it's repetition and it's bad, then that's a problem. If it's the same thing over and over again, it never works. But like you say, the Bloodline version going into WrestleMania 40 was executed perfectly, and The Rock gave us one of the best modern heel characters we've seen as the final boss. And like you said, the Cena heel turn, the execution of it with The Rock involved was also very good.
People were calling it second best. Some people were calling it
Exactly.
the best heel turn of all time. So it's funny because the IWC, these online accounts have these short memories as to how they felt when something happened. You can call
Mhm.
something a great turn, you can call the execution great and say that the follow-up was dog crap, but and both can be true. Both can be
Yeah.
true. And I think judging this turn is it's been, like you said earlier, it's been 20, not even 24 hours, less than 24 hours. You can't judge it yet based on
Mhm.
Randy beating the crap out of Cody. We don't know the why behind it. We don't know what the follow-up's going to be like. For all we know, this is going to be a better lead up to WrestleMania than the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I think with WrestleMania this year, unlike last year, is yeah, I already feel more confident that this WrestleMania is going to be better than last year's. Now I know this the bar isn't very high for that, but I just think these two main events we've got here, the potential for the next 5 weeks for these two leading angles is absolutely huge, and it's up to them to nail it. And I think they're off to a good start for both. So naturally, about these two main events, I feel very excited about what we're going to get here.
And it's not, and yeah, and to that point, this WrestleMania is not hinging on one match like it
Hmm.
was last year.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, and even arguably the year before, although a little bit different, but different players on each night. I think it's, yeah, the response currently, it's too premature. I think
Yeah.
people are being too premature in their judgment on it, and I do believe this one may be executed better just because Randy Orton's involved. Travis Scott isn't there or The Rock. There's not these variables that you cannot rely on are absent. It's Randy
Absolutely. Yeah.
Orton and Cody Rhodes, so they determine their fate.
Yep, and they're going to be there every week. Whereas we're not going to have John Cena taking weeks off. We're not going to have The Rock just disappearing altogether. We're not going to have some rapper interfere in the main event. It's just going to be the two main characters there every week, and that's going to be it. And I think that alone is going to make it infinitely better than last year's main event.
With that said, though, I am curious, as a person who is not a fan of Sami Zayn,
Hmm.
I am curious how Sammy's going to play into all this because he's had a segment with Cody for like what, the last 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, and we got some stuff to talk about with Sami Zayn,
Yeah.
definitely. One more question on the Randy Cody stuff, and then we'll move on. The other thing a lot of people wanted out of this was Cody to turn heel. And I think that a lot of us would like to see that. A lot of people think that, you and myself included, that Cody's run up until potentially now has just been stale as the same character. And his title feuds haven't been that interesting outside of a couple since Roman. And a Cody heel turn would be, a fresh coat of paint that a lot of people would like to see. Do you think that was an option here, or do you just think that, given the circumstances, the Randy heel turn made more sense in this instant?
As much as I'd like to see Cody turn, the current climate of WWE, the injuries, the roster, it doesn't make any sense from a creative standpoint.
Mhm.
It may make sense, but it doesn't make sense currently. I think from a creative standpoint, turning Randy is better. He has a couple years left. Um, they can rehabilitate his character pretty quickly. It's not going to be a long-term heel run. I don't believe it is because he's going to go on his retirement tour at some point. I think for what this is, because they clearly need to define at least a couple of heels in the main event picture for WrestleMania. I think this was the right move. I don't see Cody changing turning anytime soon. He's the golden boy of the WWE. They're angling him to be like, the next Cena. They just gave him essentially 2 championship runs consecutively, 3 in total, but 2 in a very short period of time. So they're trying to put the belt on him as much as possible to kind of get his prestige up. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this year he's like a 5 or 6 time world champion. I don't see Cody turning anytime soon. They have to establish a new, face, and I don't mean like I mean like a baby face of WWE, not that like the actual face of WWE. They need to establish a baby face of WWE before they turn Cody. I just don't think they're going to take that route. Randy turning is the safest option for them right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking about it last night as I was watching it at 3 a.m, and I just thought to myself, if Cody had turned heel, I think that the why and the explanation would be a lot harder and maybe a lot more convoluted than the simple one that Randy can run with. And like you were saying, you and I were talking yesterday, the simplest solution is often the best. And I think that if Cody had turned heel, then I think the explanation for that would be a lot more difficult to deliver and try and make sense of for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I also think like if Cody turned, he would have real heat. He would actually be hated. He's one of the few that would be hated. Seth tried to turn.
Yep.
Fans still loved him. Randy turned. Fans still love him. Cena turned. Fans still loved him. I think Cody is one of the few guys where if he does turn, he will get an appropriate fan response.
I agree. And I think that's something to say about another thing we saw was that what's the point of Randy turning heel if he's going to get cheered? And we've kind of had this for decades, haven't we? Like, not everybody is a Logan Paul.
Right.
The Drew McIntyre gets cheered because he's loved. KO got cheered. The NWO because they were cool. Like popular, like people who are heel, people still cheer for them because they're just really great at what they do.
Yep.
And people appreciate them for the character. And it's a select few who are just pure heels. The people that you can never imagine going babyface. Logan Paul, Gunther, those kind of guys. So I don't think it's an issue that Randy's playing the bad guy and still getting cheered. I think it's something we've seen for decades and it works. So I don't personally see a problem with that.
I don't think Randy's going to turn on the audience though. Personally.
No.
I think
this is all about him, isn't it? This is all about the title. This is the title. Cody's in the way. And Randy's going to do whatever it takes. And I think that's just the simplest and best explanation to give. Doesn't need to be anything too thought out. You said there that they need to find a new baby face. And just want to clarify what we mean by that is that we don't mean a baby face who's popular online. We mean a baby face who can lead the company, marketing. Cody is not just a baby face. He is a ambassador for the company. He's sponsorships. He's the guy. He's the presidential candidate guy, isn't he? He's more than just a baby face. He is like a leader for that company. So they need somebody on that level.
He's also the corporate guy in a different way than like Roman and The Rock are, but he's also the corporate like mascot for the company essentially.
Yeah, look at the sponsorships he does. Look at he's the presidential candidate, kissing hands and shaking hands and stuff. Like he's that guy, and I don't think they have anybody ready to step into that position.
Yep, I agree.
All right, should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You mentioned Sami Zayn. You and I have been quite outspoken on our opinions on Sami Zayn's recent character, and that we weren't really a big fan because it's the same old stuff. It's the underdog who kept winning matches, and it just never kind of switched up. And as much as I loved Sami Zayn in the Bloodline, and I think he's a fantastic wrestler, he just kind of got stuck in this same thing for a good couple of years. We're starting to see something different with Sami Zayn. I think you'd agree the last 2-3 weeks, maybe.
Yep.
And I'm all for it because I don't really have a problem with Sami Zayn's delivery and how he does things on television. I just had a problem with the content he's been constantly given. So he's kind of having this sort of quote unquote crash out on television at the moment. And he's, he's hugging up to Randy. He's hugging up to Cody. He's messing up. He's, saying the wrong things. He's getting angry with himself. And how are you kind of seeing what's going on here? What do you think this is leading to? And you mentioned that it could possibly have a hand in this Cody Randy feud, didn't you?
Yeah, so it's too soon to tell what it's leading to exactly, but with Sami Zayn, one of my big problems with him, among other things that I'm not going to talk about, is just his character is bland. It's repetitive. He's always, at least for the last several years, he's been essentially this whiny character, this underdog. He's been positioned as an underdog, yet he wins handily against factions and other things like that. And so every time he would come out to the stage, to the ring, he would, at least to me, it's the same thing. You know what to expect every single time. And it gets to be redundant. It gets to be bland. And, when he was part of the bloodline, it kind of broke up the monotony of his character, which was nice.
Yeah.
With the current angle, again, this is all about execution. So WWE introduces these angles and they have no long-term plan for them, no longevity to the way they execute these long-term turns or changes. His trajectory right now is very similar to where Bayley was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I agree.
She was like losing herself. She was crashing out. She was changing right before, and then all of a sudden they pivot and that character is gone. She's like Hugger Bayley now or something, some version of it. And so if they're going to commit to this, which I think they will, because Sammy's been kind of building on it week after week. So I see him continuing to do that. If they're going to commit to this turn or this gimmick change or whatever it is, I see a lot of potential. I do. So I'm going to address this, but I'll go back to Cody real quick. If Cody loses to Randy, Cody's going to inevitably win it back a couple months later. And then that might start a feud with Sammy, where next year in Saudi, he might lose it to Sammy. Sammy gets his moment, which as of right now, as of this moment, I don't like that creative direction, but as Sammy's character changes, I might be all for it. But inevitably, Cody's going to win that back from Sammy as well. So I think this is all part of, Cody being positioned as, again, the next Cena, the next multi-time champion, all of that. But going back to Sammy, I do think the direction is leading up to, Rumble and ultimately up to next WrestleMania. I hope though WWE doesn't just blow it all on these next several weeks leading up to it, because this Mania to next Mania is a year. It's a very long time for Sammy's character to develop as fast as it has been developing over the last few weeks. So they need to slow it down a little bit, keep it interesting, keep him doubting everybody and even doubting himself. Keep this momentum going for him. And I think when he finally does beat Cody, it's going to be a lot more rewarding for the viewers.
Yeah, I agree. And you posted something on X earlier about the segment between Sami Zayn and Randy Orton a few weeks ago after he lost the Elimination Chamber qualifier.
Yep.
And, I rewatched it and I forgot about it. And Sami says that he mentions that he didn't take the easy way out. He still wanted to win the match fairly and he, got distracted and paid for it. So I wonder if this is Sami eventually realizing that he can just, cheat a bit or be a bad guy to get what he wants. And this is basically what Randy did last night. And he obviously looks up to Randy. So I wonder if what Randy did has almost set an example for Sami Zayn.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with that post. I think the the most entertaining Sammy we've had was a heel Sammy in recent years, right? In the bloodline. If you could even call him that. I mean, I can. Technically, he was a heel. He did some heelish things, but he was a comedy act as well. So it just stands to reason that if that version of Sammy catapulted him, then another heel version of Sammy will catapult him even further. He needs to be. The biggest issue people have right now with Sammy winning the title is that he's, in my opinion, he's deserving of a mid-card title, but he's undeserving of a world title. He doesn't have that. It's not that he's not good in the ring or anything like that. He's just not interesting. You have to be able to interest the audience, to cause interest in the audience in order to be a main title holder. At least that's my belief. And so they have to get him to that level. They're causing interest. I don't think anyone knew where this was going 3 weeks ago. Hell, I don't even think anyone knew where the Randy conversation was going with Sammy, because it was very different than his conversation with Cody. So I think he's going to take Randy's lead. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Randy won his matchup against Cody at WrestleMania with Sami Zayn interfering, and that's where Sami Zayn's full turn comes. However, I'm a little reluctant to want that to happen, because again, it's 1 year away from next WrestleMania, and if indeed they are going to put the belt on Sami next WrestleMania, I think it's going to be like this MFT stuff, this MFT Wyatt Six stuff. It's just too dragged out. I mean, or the Rhea Liv feud, or the Damian Priest. I mean, there's been so many storylines that have been absolutely dragged out where they had a pretty solid beginning to them, and I don't want to see that with the world title picture.
No, I agree. And I think Rhea and Liv's a great example, because that started off really, really good. And by the time it ended at that Netflix debut, I just thought, thank God it's over.
Yeah.
Because too much of anything is bad for you. And they need to cut. There's definitely a pacing issue. You mentioned the Bayley angle that was dropped. You remember last year they were teasing Bayley versus Roxanne. Just drop that completely as well. So I don't think they'll do it with this one, just because he's so close to the world title angle. So I think there's more priority on this particular Sami Zayn angle. But I agree, pacing is very important. But I'm glad that they're doing something different with Sami Zayn, because I think Sami Zayn is great at. He's a good promo. He plays a character very well. He's good in the ring. So to see something different, it will give him a much needed fresh coat of paint. So, and I think we'll see a lot more of him after what we saw last night. Maybe in Cody's ear. Maybe he'll be like butting between the two. That seems to be what he's doing.
I mean, they could even form an angle where him and Randy create like a mini faction, mini alliance. I don't want to call them a tag team, because I don't want to see Randy in the tag team picture.
No.
Or Sammy for that matter. And the voices in his head might lead up to him turning on Randy. There's a lot of options when you commit to this angle. I think the options are endless. But it takes commitment. They have to commit to this angle, because they've dropped, I feel like in the last 3 years, I feel like they've dropped more angles than they've added, personally.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And if they could give us a reason to get emotionally invested in the relationships on television, then it just makes everything that happens after so much better. So for me, I think the absolute peak of recent WWE wasn't WrestleMania 40. To me, it was the Rumble in 23 when Sammy turned on Roman. That was the absolute best thing I've seen in years. I watched it live, the crowd reaction, myself and my partner, we just couldn't believe what was happening, because we've been so invested in the relationships between these characters for so long. And it's like a TV show. If you're invested in a TV character for 6 seasons and then they die, then you feel it, don't you? Because you're just invested. And when Sammy hit Roman with the chair, I can't even describe the feeling that I had.
Oh, it was an awesome segment.
It was fantastic.
Very memorable.
Yeah. And I think that if they can build that do that relationship building between these characters, and obviously they've got a proven commodity with Sami Zayn because he's been in that position, then I think that they could have something here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, everybody on X knows my opinion on Sammy, and I'm sitting here telling you I think this is a very, very good angle for him,
Yeah.
and they need to execute it properly because there are a lot of people, at least in the IWC, at least online, there are a lot of people that share my same sentiment towards Sammy and his current gimmick,
Mhm.
and I think they could turn us, honestly.
Yeah.
If they execute it properly, they could turn us.
Because all I judge things by is what I see on television. And if I find it entertaining, then I'm all for it. If I don't, then I'll say it's boring.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, we don't want Randy and Cody. It's like, well, I'll decide that when I see what happens on television. I'm not
Yeah.
going to write something off on paper. I'm going to see how it plays out. And no matter who's involved, if it piques my interest, then I'm all for it.
Right.
A couple more things on SmackDown, then we'll move on. I'm not going to go over the whole show. Drew McIntyre, another one of our favorites. He quit again at the start of the show. I think
Yep.
that's the third time he's quit on television. So he started the show. Obviously, he's very upset about what happened last week. And they're obviously following up on this Drew versus Jacob mini rivalry kind of thing. And then he ended up costing Jacob Fatu to give, a pretty big win for Trick Williams. Let's not
Mhm.
understate that Trick Williams beat Jacob Fatu last night. And they announced the match for next week on SmackDown, which I thought was interesting. Because for me, if they're doing the match, what will it be, 4 weeks out from Mania? I don't think they're going to run it back at Mania. I don't know what you think about this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen next week. I have a feeling the match is either not going to happen, it's gonna be an
Mhm.
early DQ, something. Because it is the WrestleMania matchup for Drew
It
and
has to be.
Jacob. Yeah, it is. So I don't I don't like, honestly, I don't like how the whole thing was executed yesterday. I don't
Mhm.
like that he quit and came back 2 hours later.
No,
I don't like that.
no.
Um, I think
Lazy.
Yeah, I think he should have quit, and then he should have, no plans for Jacob. Jacob just goes on, and then maybe a return 1 or 2 weeks before Mania, um, and I don't know, beat down Jacob or something, right? Something of consequence that leads to their Mania um, matchup. But I wasn't a big fan of him announcing he's quitting and then interfering later on. For me, that it was just, he should have ran with it because him quitting, even though the commentary that followed was garbage and you knew it was a work. I mean, it's obviously he didn't really quit, but him quitting felt emotional. Like I don't even remember what he said, but he kind of like brushed off the going against Jacob. He's just like, whatever. I'm done with it. I quit. Right. And I thought they could have used that. They could have used that a little bit better than to bring him back, 1 or 2 hours later to interfere. Um, they could have tricked all of us into thinking, "Hey, he's gone to shoot his movie, or he's really not coming back." Again, even though the commentary was bad, it, if I were booking, I would have given him a couple of weeks personally after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt really predictable as well. I felt like posting on social media when he said, "I quit." Breaking news: Drew McIntyre has quit. We'll see him back in a couple of hours.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what happened, and we all kind of knew that was going to happen. As soon as you saw Jacob Fatu had a match, which we all knew because it was spoiled beforehand.
And they already
Um,
hate each other. Like
I
Drew
know.
and Jacob hate each other. You have 5 weeks left. I mean, what more can they I mean, there is a little more they can possibly do, but I think you give it a 2 to 3 week buffer at most, and it's not going to get it's not going to be mentally draining for the viewers to watch on a weekly basis. I think you give it a little bit of a buffer and you're good.
Yeah,
Um, it's just I'm again, this is one of those situations where I'm curious to see. But at the same time, I want to be cognizant about the fact that a lot of us, myself included, in years past, have been like, oh, there's 2 weeks left for Mania and there's no buildup. So I want to be cognizant of that fact, because yeah, if Drew's gone 2 to 3 weeks, comes back 2 weeks before Mania, people are going to be saying that same thing. So it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I just feel like it could have been executed a little bit better.
yeah. One thing they haven't done either is that correct me if I'm wrong, but they haven't actually gone into the whole who attacked Jacob thing.
No.
We assume it was Drew McIntyre. And I assume Jacob believes it was Drew McIntyre, but there's been no confirmation. We had Drew, when he was champion a few weeks ago, vehemently say it wasn't him,
Mhm.
and just nothing since then. And I understand the Jey Uso one. The Jey Uso one was just to kind of get him off TV because he wasn't supposed to be in the match. Fine. And I get that Jacob needed surgery. Um, but they really kind of led us to believe this was going to be an angle when Jacob came into that steel cage and beat up Drew McIntyre for no reason at the time. And they haven't really kind of, it's been a long time now. It's been a long time.
Yeah, they haven't been really doing these justice, honestly. Even when
No.
when Jade or I mean, it's been pretty repetitive, and they're not doing them any justice. It's still very unclear. And like Jay's whole thing, I know they were just writing him off of the match, but you got to follow these things up to some degree, even if it's just a one match follow up. It is what it is, but you got to
Just
follow
close it
them
up.
up.
Yeah, loose ends.
Exactly. Close the loop on it. Give it some continuity. That's what people want, even if it's a dog crap match, right? Like, let's use Jay as an example. He comes back the week later and he fights against, I don't know, Damian Priest attacked him. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least close the loop on it.
Yeah. And it's like a Scooby-Doo show most of the time, watching with all these mysteries they have had recently.
And they go unanswered, though. So that,
yeah.
Are they really a mystery if they're unanswered and they have no intention to answer them? And that's not the right mystery. That's not the right.
No. And do you really think they're going to unmask all of Seth Rollins' merry men? No. We're not going to know who they are. We saw that one random guy who was unmasked on SmackDown and another guy at the Chamber, but there's like 300 of them.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that in a second on Raw. But yeah, Drew versus Jacob, I think you're right. I think next week, maybe it goes to like a DQ and they have a street fight at Mania. I think a street fight for those two would be great and I think would make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably where we're heading. Jade and Rhea. Now, there's been a bit of debate about whether this was the plan from the start due to Bianca's, prolonged absence due to her injury. So we're getting Jade and Rhea. I think it's safe to say that this hasn't been very good so far in terms of what they've put on television. And I don't really have, from a story perspective, I don't really have much faith in this becoming any better over the next few weeks. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Rhea. I'm not really crazy about Jade either. Aside from that, storyline wise, it feels very forced to me right now.
100%.
I don't see Rhea moving to SmackDown permanently. I don't necessarily believe Rhea is going to win at Mania. Bianca might come back. She might interfere somehow. She might, inadvertently interfere in a way where Jade wins leading up to SummerSlam. I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on with Bianca currently after her finger surgery. I have honestly very little interest in this match. Yeah. I in my mind, I don't think this is going to be a clean match. There has to be some sort of interference because as it sits currently, it's not a very interesting matchup. You have Rhea fans who are excited because Rhea's in the title picture. You don't really have a lot of Jade fans out there that I'm seeing, at least online. Not to say there isn't any in real life, but online at least. I think this is one of those filler matches, and I don't think it's going to be a clean match. I don't think Rhea and Jade can really. I mean, unless they're practicing weeks and weeks and weeks leading up to Mania, which they should be, I think that something is going to happen at this match.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, anything to give us some excitement, right? And I think this one, I mean, obviously, however we get there, we're going to get there to WrestleMania. In terms of who wins this one, for me, it's twofold. Because in one part of my mind, I'm thinking, are they still banking on Jade versus Bianca? Are they just postponing that until Bianca gets back, in which case, Jade wins? On the other hand, Rhea Ripley is a massive star in the women's division in terms of how over she is, and she's been out of the title picture for a long time. But I think that in terms of who it would benefit, more. I think if Jade beats Rhea Ripley, I think it would do a lot more for Jade than it would for Rhea if Rhea beat Jade. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right there. I see what I see happening is Jade winning, her and Bianca eventually feuding, Rhea going back to Raw, Liv winning, and Rhea and Liv running it back. That's the kind of what I see in my mind. I agree with that? No, but I see that direction personally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've had a long break from Rhea and Liv over a year now, so
Mhm.
I guess there is kind of a scope to run that back. And obviously, you still got the overarching story of Rhea and Io, where Rhea's never pinned Io.
Yep.
So that's going to have to, you talk about closing a loop. That's a loop that needs to be closed. Rhea has to beat Io at some point to kind of finish that off because they've mentioned that on television multiple times that Rhea's never
Yep.
beaten Io.
And
So
Io's coming off of a couple of world title runs, in recent years. So I think she's gonna probably be out of the title picture for a little bit. She's likely gonna go into the mid card for a little while,
which is
because
fine.
yeah, which is fine because honestly, the women have elevated the IC title.
Mhm.
The IC title is probably higher in prestige currently than the main women's titles.
Yes, I agree. I think they've done a great job with the IC title. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about the women's US title.
Yeah.
But yeah, the women's IC title looks great. One more thing on SmackDown, just to switch gears here. Jelly Roll, he was on SmackDown last night. He looks great. Is it just me or Jelly Roll cuts a hell of a promo for an outside
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah,
Like
he's pretty
he
good.
can talk. He can
He's
talk.
he's an entertainer, so he has
Mm.
he has those skills. I think he can talk a lot better than a lot of the people in the locker room, honestly.
Yeah. And the way he was talking to the Miz, it was like, I believe every word this guy's saying. So he had a segment with the Miz, and we saw Miz TV with Jelly Roll, and we're thinking that cannot be the WrestleMania match. And
Mhm.
thankfully, according to Dirt Sheets, it's not. Um, I did laugh at the Kit Wilson involvement. I know Kit Wilson's probably a very love-hate kind of character. I think it's
I
entertaining because
I thought it was funny. And
yeah,
honestly, my wife was listening to the segment, and she's
yeah,
not like the biggest wrestling fan, but
yeah,
she even started busting up. So
yeah.
I thought it was a good it was clever,
Yeah, yeah, and my partner did the same, and I love the bit where he's talking about Jelly Roll losing weight, and you think
Yeah.
he's going to say you're toxic, and he just calls him fat phobic
Yep.
instead,
Yeah,
and
that's
he's just making fun of all the right people, and
yep.
that's what I really like about his character. So apparently, the rumor on this is that they're going to have a face off next week. Kit Wilson's going to call out Jelly Roll, and the rumor is that we're going to get Jelly Roll and Royce Keys versus The Miz and Kit Wilson. I don't really have a problem with this for two reasons. One, it puts Royce Keys with a superstar in terms of eyes on the product because Jelly
Mm.
Roll is a superstar. He's a
Mhm.
big guy. And if you put Royce Keys in that's a lot of eyes on Royce Keys. And the second reason is they have to call themselves Rolls Royce. They
Yeah.
just they
Oh, yeah,
just
that's funny.
absolutely have to. They are missing a
That's
trick if they
clever.
don't do that.
No,
So what do you think of that?
yeah, I mean, it's WrestleMania season. They always have these meme matchups. They have since the beginning of WrestleMania. So it's, and I call it a meme matchup. It's a legit match, but it's a celebrity match, right? So
Yeah, harmless.
I don't have this is just what wrestling has always been. I don't really have an issue with it. Even if I don't watch it, even if I don't tune in for this match, I don't really have an issue with it. It's a harmless match, just like you said. I mean, all the people involved are not part of any angle currently. They're not really part of anything
No,
at all. So why not? Why not um why not introduce Royce Keys like that? I think it'll give him a platform, and it is what it is. For the people who are saying, who are making a big deal about it, just don't tune into it. It's okay.
yeah, and
It's
also
okay.
the people who are making a big deal out of it online, they're not the casual audience who are paying the massively inflated prices to go to the stadium.
Right.
So I think the crowd will be really hot for this match because everyone knows who Jelly Roll is,
That's in
um,
Vegas. Yeah.
and it's in Vegas. Like everyone knows who the Miz is. Everyone likes seeing the Miz get beat up. Kit Wilson is, you know, really funny at the moment, and it's eyes on Royce Keys, and you're going to see Royce Keys do some pretty great shit because he's a great wrestler. So I don't see a problem with this.
I,
I think
I'm
it'll be
of
harmless fun.
the I'm of the mindset. Look, there's like if you follow my ex, sometimes I might seem critical about a match. I'm of the mindset though that there are multiple matches and multiple storylines going on at any given time, and sometimes no storylines. It's okay for people to tune out of certain matches that they don't like. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
it's kind of like sports, right? If your favorite team is, the Los Angeles Chargers, you might watch all of their games throughout the season, but if you hate the Eagles, or you're not forcing yourself to watch their matchups, and that's completely fine. I just don't understand. Again, I'm not going to go down this hole here, but I don't understand why in wrestling it's all or nothing. You have to watch and love every matchup,
Yeah.
or you can't, or you're not a fan, right? You can't walk away. You can't bathroom break. You can't food break certain matchups. Otherwise, you're XYZ. You're labeled as XYZ.
Yeah, yeah.
It's no different in wrestling. You're going to have your likes. You're going to have your dislikes. To talk about it is one thing, but in reality, all you need to do is walk away from it. It's not a big deal.
And we all need a bathroom break during WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And, if this is your bathroom break, completely get it. Right, that wraps up what we want to talk about SmackDown. Again, thanks for watching, guys. If you are new to the channel, this is our first video, so please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and leave a comment with your thoughts on what we've had to talk about on SmackDown. Let's touch on AEW very briefly, because it's Revolution week. Revolution in AEW historically has probably been my favorite show they do. I haven't been able to watch as much as I'd like to recently, and that's more because of time rather than a lack of interest. But I try and keep up with it. I know you kind of keep up with it, but we're heading into Revolution weekend. Got the card up here. How are you feeling about this year?
Yeah, Revolution's typically a pretty good card, pretty good featuring. This year, it's, I've disconnected myself a lot from AEW over the last couple of years. However, I still watch it. I still watch Dynamite. I still watch Collision. And whether I'm watching it in the background or while I'm doing something, I still try to keep up with it every week. I have a lot of disagreements with AEW, and a lot of their talent. But nevertheless, for the entertainment factor, I do watch it. I think Revolution's card is pretty good for what it is. With AEW, I consider AEW to be less predictable of a product than WWE as a general rule. So I do think a lot of the matchups are really close. And I'm looking forward to how this pay-per-view plays out. Like you said, Revolution traditionally has been a pretty good show.
Yep, tomorrow night, March 15th. I think that, historically, what you can always guarantee from a AEW pay-per-view, however you feel about the build going into it, is you're going to get some good wrestling and you're going to see some pretty crazy stuff, which is fine. We all kind of need that sometimes in wrestling. If WWE is the family-friendly shareholder sponsors thing, AEW really kind of pushes the envelope when it comes to, the more kind of hardcore stuff. And I think that's one reason why it's good that AEW is around, because we get that kind of stuff that we don't get elsewhere.
Yep.
Main event, MJF Hangman. Hangman is doing the Cody Rhodes stipulation where if he loses, he will never challenge for the title again. I've kind of gone off Hangman since his feud with Swerve. I used to really like Hangman's character. I think his character development across that couple of years was some of the best in the company. But ever since he won the title at All In against Jon Moxley, and I get that was the pinnacle of his story, and it kind of just went downhill, and he was in the trios, and he's kind of just been here or there. And I assume MJF's winning. I don't see them taking the title off MJF this quickly, unless it's like they do another rematch and MJF wins it back, and that's how they get round Hangman not challenging. How do you see it going?
Yeah, when Hangman beat Moxley, he did his whole tour of thanking the fans and that whole thing that seems to be commonplace today with baby faces, and not so much like 15-20 years ago. And so I think for me, that kind of diminished how I look at him, how I view his character. This match, the only reason I have interest in this match, not even because of MJF or Hangman, it's because of Texas Death. I think they're interesting. They're fun sometimes. They can be gruesome,
Mhm.
but they added an element that's not typically there. Um, I think Hangman is probably going to win.
Mhm.
They dropped their trios belts and everything, and I think I see Hangman as winning this match. MJF is popular. I don't think he's as popular now as he's been previously in his previous runs, and I do see his promos are getting a little stale, in my opinion. They're kind of repeat promos week after week.
Mm.
He's kind of treading the same path as Sami Zayn. Um, then that's why I call him the Sami Zayn of the AEW. I do see my prediction for this match is that Hangman will win just because he's more experienced with Texas Death.
Yeah. Yeah, that is his match. And yeah, MJF, like, I think MJF's fun. Again, it's what I said about Sammy, where in terms of his talent on the microphone and his delivery, he's fantastic. But I agree with you, like, it's that when the content is kind of recycled.
Mhm.
And I think if he was doing something else character wise, I think he'd nail it just because he's, by far and away the best in the company at kind of delivery and talking, etc.
Mhm.
So, maybe they'll do something different with him at some point. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
But in terms of looking down the card, we've got John Moxley and Konosuke Takeshita in a no time limit match for the Continental Championship. I was soured on John Moxley because of the whole Death Rider stuff a long time ago. But I know the Death Riders are still together, but ever since that kind of ended, he's been doing some, good in ring work. Even though he's coming across as a babyface while his faction is still heel, which I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So this is so Moxley's been getting cheered a lot. And actually
yeah.
after this last episode with Takeshita, he prevented his buddies from beating him down. And
Mm.
so even Takeshita, did you catch Dynamite?
I haven't been able to this week because of
Okay.
work, unfortunately. But I read about it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. And so Takeshita also is kind of turning in a way. Um Moxley over the last couple of weeks has been reiterating that he can beat Takeshita. He can beat Takeshita. He can beat, like, he's trying to. He really believes in himself and his ability to beat Takeshita. But it's almost these cutting these promos in a way where his character almost feels like, maybe there's doubt, like internal doubt that he could beat Takeshita. Um, Before he started cutting these, I pegged Takeshita as the winner. He was going to he was going to win this. I think Moxley's probably going to retain.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I love Takeshita. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world at the moment, bell to bell. Um, so I'm looking forward to that match definitely because those guys can go. Not going to go through the whole card, but there is one thing I wanted to mention. The Battle Royal for Ricochet's championship. You see any room for any kind of returns here? Maybe a Chris Jericho, a Jay White, anything like that?
Um, I don't know. I don't know that they're going to have returns. This show is already super stacked,
Hmm.
and they just brought in David Finlay, and
Yeah.
I, I don't see any major returns here. Um, I wonder though if I don't even know what the state of Lashley is at this point, but
He's another
um,
one. Yeah.
if there's going to be a return, I think Lashley's been out long enough to be one of those returns. I'm not really holding my breath for anything. Uh, there's going to be unusual things. There's going to be things out of the ordinary, but I don't really see I don't think there's going to be a debut. There might be a Lashley return, maybe some others that I'm not thinking of right now, but I don't see Jericho. I've heard the things about Jericho from all the dirt sheets and a lot of other uh, commentary accounts, but I'm still holding out for Jericho coming back to WWE. I think there might be some negotiations going on with both
Mhm.
AEW and WWE. So I don't see Jericho returning for that belt. Because he would be a contender for it, and I don't think he's willing to take on that schedule
No.
currently.
Yeah. 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 It's going to be an interesting one this year with Jericho with the contract freeze, but I guess we'll see what happens. Um, I guess it's a nice segue into what AEW have announced this week, which is their My AEW platform for international users.
Yeah.
This is great news for me because for me currently to watch AEW, I have to subscribe to Triller, and then and Triller's awful. Used to be Fight TV. It's just a terrible product, and the streaming is awful. Then I have to go to Amazon to get the pay-per-view separately, and it's just a bit of a headache. So what they've done here, for anyone not aware who lives outside of the US and Canada, they've announced their own streaming app. It's like the WWE Network essentially, and I think it's like 90 British pounds for a year for Live Dynamite, Live Collision, Ring of Honor, all pay-per-views, historic library, everything. So for me, that gets me interested in making more of an effort to get back involved because it's less hassle for me and it's also cheaper than what I was doing before because we still had to pay for the pay-per-views on Amazon even though it was cheaper for us guys than it is for you guys. I think you guys pay $50 and if for us it's like £20. Um but yeah, for anyone not interested, not aware, then this is the thing now. So if you're international, you can subscribe to AEW's own WWE network. So I'm going to be looking into that. And
it's a phenomenal deal, honestly. I mean,
yeah,
it's cheaper than all of the streaming platform. I wish they had it here. I mean, although here, using Max HBO, it actually works really well. I really like the integration with Max, and I think it works really, really well with AEW. I think it actually works a lot better than the WWE model right now, where you have to get so many different networks to be able to keep up.
I know it's cornering everything, aren't they?
And you guys have it good out there in the UK. I mean,
we do.
You guys have Netflix for WWE, and now you have MyAEW for AEW. So
we lucked out over in the UK. Like everything WWE is on Netflix. Everything NXT, Raw, SmackDown pay-per-views. I think we still have to go to YouTube for AAA, but boohoo, we're not going to complain about that. But yeah, that's a really good deal for AEW fans internationally. Neither of us are really qualified to talk about the whole TV rights thing with Paramount, but we'll see how this plays out once that decision is inevitably made with their next TV deal. But until then, I guess you guys are on TBS and TNT, aren't you?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to Monday Night Raw. Finish off with Monday Night Raw. Again, thanks for being here, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe button, leave a comment with your thoughts. We'll get back to you. What do you think of Monday Night Raw? I thought it was a better show than SmackDown. I thought it had a couple of, really good story beats. And I think that there weren't many matches, but one of those was the gauntlet match. So I kind of understand that. What are your thoughts about Monday Night Raw?
Well, you're not going to want to hear this, but my thoughts are it was a very forgettable Raw, especially in light of yesterday's turn.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah,
the segment with the Usos and Punk I thought was phenomenal.
Yes, it was.
I saw a lot of commentary on X about how it was garbage, how it was a bad segment. Look, in recent times, I've hated on Jey Uso's character because I thought his Yeet character was just, it wasn't for me. But maybe it was for kids, or it just wasn't for me. It's not for me. We've talked about this. It was hard for me to get excited over this Yeet Man character, kind of a clown character, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean I dislike Jey, right? I mean, Jey, I think there's a time and a place for his character. When he's with Jimmy and they're invested, and you could kind of tell with Jimmy and Jey when they're invested in their careers and their own product. And I, maybe it's not fair for me to say, but I feel like over the last year or so, Jimmy hasn't really been invested in his character. And Jey has kind of been, for the last several months, just kind of like doing these, like in construction, you'd call them like odd jobs, right? But in wrestling, he's kind of been doing these odd jobs too. And so, yeah, I've criticized his character over the last few months, but I think this is exactly where Jey needs to be with his character, with his brother, not doing the Yeet stuff, but being serious characters, interacting with the main events, whether that means they're going to be Roman's lackeys or whatever. I don't know yet, but for the purpose of their career, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for them to resurrect the bloodline or be Roman's lackeys. They did the best work of their careers when they were with Roman.
Yeah, I agree. And they're family as well. They're a legitimate family. So there's no reason, not to dip in there every now and again. And I agree with you. I think for a week where Roman was absent, this was really good considering Roman wasn't there. And we had a really good debate in a space. Was it last night before SmackDown?
Yeah, yeah,
About, whether Jay kind of went overboard. And I don't think he did, because historically Jay has always been the hothead. He was in the bloodline. Look at how he treated Sammy. He was paranoid. He was just crazy all the time. And he's conveying the emotion of his family, who they had a
right.
legitimate passing. So I didn't see it as overdone at all.
No, I didn't. The dynamic was really good. You had Jimmy being cool-headed.
Yep.
You had Jay looking to him as a big brother, telling him to explain to CM Punk. The dynamic was perfect. You had Jay kind of like, I know they're twins, but the little brother Jay, who's I don't want to say throwing a tantrum. It's not the right. He was crashing out. He was losing it. And then you had the cool-headed Jimmy kind of setting everything out on the table, and trying to reason with Punk. Right. So I think the segment was very, very good. This sounds really stupid. I'm sure it's going to sound stupid, but Jay and Jimmy's presentation dictates, in my mind, how well their segments do. When they're dressed in black, it's just, to me, it brings back like the bloodline vibes, and they're more, it's easier to take them more seriously. I don't know what it is about the color black, right? And I'm not talking about the hoodie, the masked man type of black. I'm just talking about how they were
to that.
Yeah, I'm talking about how they were dressed. Like their presentation made them appear more serious, made the segment appear more serious. You can tell Punk's character is kind of toying with them, because as he walks off, he like breaks this little like smirk. But I thought it was a really good segment, and I'm really, really interested to see where this goes. I hope it wasn't a one-off with the Usos. I have a feeling it's not going to be. At the same time, as much as I'd like for Roman to win and the Usos interfere, I don't think it's the right move for Roman to not beat Punk clean.
Yes. Yeah, I think the match, whoever wins, it has to be clean, because if the Usos help Roman win, we've seen that for 4 years. You know what I mean? So I agree, it needs to be clean. But the segment was great. I think CM Punk did a great job. He's excellent in these situations on the mic. He's such a great storyteller when he wants to be. And I think that what they're doing with Punk and I guess the bloodline now, it's just been excellent shit so far. And we've got consecutive weeks of Roman Reigns coming up, starting this Monday.
Right.
He's on for like 5 out of the next 6 Raws. So this is going to ramp up really, really quickly, and I'm just super excited. And I think that the two, like I said earlier, the 2 main events we've got for Mania, there's potential there for this to potentially be an absolute all-time main event. I think.
I mean, they could have gone so many directions with this. Like I said, I thought the segment was so good, but I think you like throw the MFT into there, and now you have some. They're not going to appear. I seriously,
no,
different Jesus shows, Christ, no. And they're in their own Wyatt Six storyline. But there's so many different ways to approach this angle, but at the same time, it's like one man versus a bunch of people. So you got to be careful with how how you execute on it.
Yeah, that was my next point, because if the Usos are going to be involved in this long term, then who backs up CM Punk? Because CM Punk's not the type of guy to have friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's always been a bit of a lone wolf outside of, the Nexus, etc. So
I mean, who even hates Roman in the bloodline, right? Or the Usos.
And who likes CM Punk? Everyone hates CM Punk in kayfabe, don't they? So they need to be careful, because we can't shoehorn in people to support CM Punk just because there's 3 on the other side. Right. So I'm interested to see how they handle that. Yeah. And also we had some debate on CM Punk's comment about Roman's father, and he said that Roman didn't apologize for doing the same thing to Cody with Dusty. And I think it's a fair point. And people say, oh, you can't ask a heel to apologize for heel stuff, but that's not what this is. It's kayfabe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think so I agree with you. I do think they're 2 different. The context is different.
What they said was different. I'll agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. The context was different between the 2. Dusty seemed a little more like invoking his name and everything seemed a little more organic to what was going on at the time. Whereas with like Punk using Roman's father, it kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of like I'm not pissing you off enough, so let me say something that'll really piss you off. In my mind, at least. Of course, everyone's going to interpret it a little bit differently. But for me, it felt like it came out of nowhere. I don't have a problem with what was said. I think, everyone's asking for the Attitude Era. Attitude Era was way worse than this.
Oh,
way
yeah.
worse. I mean, it was kind of a non-comment, but it was like the most PG Attitude Era comment you can have.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I don't know I'm not up in arms about it. I don't know why people are up in arms about it. It was a segment. But for me, consistency wise, I feel like the context was a little bit different than what was said about Dusty at the time that it was said.
Yeah, I can agree with that. All right, let's move on. We need to get this out of the way. So Seth Rollins and his Merry Merry Men. So this whole Vision angle has obviously just been cursed for a long time. And my overarching thoughts on this is I don't really have any opinion, positive or negative, about what they're going to give us at WrestleMania, just because I know for a fact that plan A, B, C, D, and probably E have gone out the window through injury. So I'm just going to accept whatever they give us without any sort of criticism whatsoever, because like everyone's hands are tied here. And I just think that this has just been a disaster from start to finish. And I just can't wait till it's over. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, the masked men thing with all the masked men guys. That's kind of like it's kind of like a it's kind of like a Vince McMahon type of booking.
It was
funny enough, but I actually as a Vince McMahon fan, I actually hated this segment.
Yeah.
I thought it was super corny. The whole like masked man shuffle type thing to hide Seth Rollins. Like
I felt like putting Benny Hill music over it or something. It was
it's like, was it necessary?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. It didn't feel fun to me. It kind of felt cringy in a way.
It was really cringe, yeah.
And I look for these like over the top things, because I recognize that pro wrestling is a glorified circus, is what it is. Like, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It just is what it is. But the masked men stuff at this point, I feel like Triple H is just trolling people because we just
honestly
smack about it.
Honestly, I said the same thing, like, because they've done like a couple of masked men angles throughout last year. And I think after the most recent one with Austin Theory, people were complaining that there's too many masked men storylines. So it felt like Triple H is saying, well, screw you guys, here's 13 more at once. And he's just like deliberate overkill. And I honestly, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if that is part of the thinking backstage.
Yeah, I still have a feeling Ethan Page is gonna somehow team up either with the Vision or Seth. I haven't developed that thought yet, but he seems to really fit into this, like what's going on.
Well, he's doing some interesting stuff on NXT at the moment, so I think he's going to see through Stand and Deliver based on what's happening on NXT. But I think that after Stand and Deliver, he 100% needs to be caught up because he is fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know where this is going to go with
Seth.
I feel like Seth is lost currently. And the Vision is lost currently. I mean, it's like the Three Stooges right now at the Vision, and I say that as somebody who loves Austin Theory, and I like Logan Paul too. This whole thing is lost. I don't know how you rehabilitate what's going on with this.
I love Austin Theory. I think Logan Paul has done a good job with everyone else being absent because he's a great talker and he's kind of trying to carry this as the leader when he's like fourth in line. But Austin Theory, I think that he is really suffering from the absence of these guys.
Yeah.
Because he's great, but he's not a leader yet. He's not a guy who can carry a faction, and he's kind of being forced to do that through absence. And it's not going to make him look good. So I really hope he comes out of this unscathed. But
and even with Paul Heyman, like his character has just been, you have Austin Theory calling Paul Heyman his wise man.
Yeah.
When Paul Heyman's been going by Oracle with the Vision, it just, I don't know. I don't understand what they're doing with the Vision.
No.
I mean, the Vision's been doomed from the get-go with all the injuries, but I just don't understand what I don't know. I don't know understand what they're doing right now.
Well, if I had to force your hand, and I know this is a tough question, but what do you think the various components of this storyline are doing at WrestleMania?
Well, I've heard the rumors about Seth and Brock.
Yeah.
Which again, also, you have Paul Heyman splitting his attention and essentially his character between two groups, one being the Vision and one being Brock Lesnar. So there's a lot of inconsistency there. I don't see Brock going against Seth. I mean, unless they put Oba against LA or something, I don't see Brock unless something happens in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you think Seth is going to answer Brock's challenge? I don't see that happening.
I don't, and I'd be disappointed if he did. I think there's better things that Brock can do at Mania, because nobody comes out of that match looking good.
Right. If you want a high caliber matchup, then yeah, put Seth versus Brock. But you have 4 weeks to build on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the right build, Paul Heyman's a good talker representing Brock, and Seth's a good talker. So I think they could really build something great, but it just feels inorganic. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Vision. Maybe a tag team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no, maybe how's Braun doing at this point? Have we heard anything about his hernia repair?
I don't know with Braun. I think that, obviously he's the biggest piece here, isn't he? But if Braun's not back, then I can just see something like Seth Rollins and LA Knight versus Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And that might be what they have to settle for, which, a lot of LA Knight fans out there probably won't be happy with that. They think he should be main eventing WrestleMania, etc. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the only currently what we see on TV. That's the only match I can think of.
Are we going to see Seth interfere with Punk Roman? He hates them both equally, so I don't. Again, I don't know what the plan is for Seth, and I don't have any idea currently. I have some lingering ideas, but no definitive idea for him.
Well, there's lots of moving parts with the wrestling injury, isn't there? One injury can cause knock-on effects to multiple different stories, and depending on which dirt sheet you believe, Seth Roman was the plan this Mania, or Cody Roman 3 and Hell in a Cell was the plan this Mania. So I think Seth and Roman is going to happen. Could he get involved after the main event or in the main event? I think if they structure the show where the Vision and Seth LA Knight is like the first thing on night 1, and then Seth gets involved at the very end of night 2, then potentially, because viewing time wise, that's a long time to pass. Right. That's a good 6-7 hours of viewing time. So maybe I'm just very curious.
I've had a lot of family members that have had the hernia repair surgeries and things like that, and it doesn't seem like, of course, they're not professional wrestlers. So
exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's a super long recovery with today's technology and stuff. So I think we'll probably see Braun back in some capacity at WrestleMania.
I hope so. I mean, I guess it's going to be like the standard recovery time, and then the tax for being a pro athlete is on top of that as well. Right. I guess so. I guess it depends on how long that extra bit is for being ring ready.
Right.
But he's sorely missed, and it's awful for him because it's come at the worst possible time where he was probably at the top of his game.
Yeah.
The best we've ever seen him going into WrestleMania. And now he's not there. And
but we've had so many injuries that a lot of returns this WrestleMania is inevitable. I think we're going to have a lot of returns, honestly.
Which will be fine because we like excitement, we like unpredictability, and I think that if they can give us stuff that makes us go, oh wow, then that's just part of the fun, isn't it? So I'm absolutely fine with that.
We have KO that's been out forever too. We haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah. KO's another one. Sorely missed as well. Sorely missed. We spoke about Brock Lesnar, so I guess we'll move on to Obafemi, who had a match with Rusev and fairly dominant. I wouldn't call it a squash match. I think Rusev got some decent offense in, and it was a heavy hitting match. It was just quite short. I think this was great. I think this is exactly what you need to do with Obafemi. He needs to be if Obafemi is going to be the one to face Brock Lesnar at Mania, then he has to look good against big guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they did here with Rusev. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was an appropriate matchup. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too short. They did give Rusev a few. Rusev held his own for a few portions of the match, which is how it should be. Oba winning ultimately, I think, was the right move. I'm still undecided on Oba versus Brock personally, as a big Brock Lesnar fan, and I'm an Oba fan as well. So it's not like I dislike Oba. I just I know people like Brock Lesnar, people like Undertaker, like some of these traditionally big guys, they have to be booked a certain way. You can't just willy-nilly book them because it really hurts their character. Kane, these big guys. So I'm a little conflicted on how that should be booked if they do end up going that route. Or Brock versus Oba, the overwhelming majority of the IWC on X believes Oba should go over. He should beat Brock. Some have even suggested a squash match against Brock.
No, absolutely not.
But it's like, if you squash Brock, then losing to Cody or Roman or somebody of that stature doesn't make any sense. Even in the world of quote unquote fake wrestling. I've posted about this. My opinion is, if they're going to run Oba versus Brock at WrestleMania, it should be a no contest or a double DQ. That's my opinion. I mean, if Brock agrees to put Oba over, then okay, give Oba the victory, but by a hair.
Yeah.
It can't be a handily victory or a squash match. It has to be by a hair, because while it is a WrestleMania worthy matchup, WrestleMania is 2 nights. You have to consider, and for Oba, it's one night, it's one moment. You have to ask yourself, what's the plan for Oba? If he can beat Brock Lesnar, there isn't really anyone else he can't beat, right? And so you have to be careful on how you book him, because you might front load Oba, and that hurts him. I think Oba is going to be a slow and steady progression of his character. And honestly, it wouldn't hurt Oba to no contest Brock. Everyone's saying, "Oh, that's a Raw or a SmackDown matchup, not a WrestleMania matchup." No, I think a no contest would be WrestleMania worthy if Brock Lesnar and Obafemi are involved. Other people, maybe not so much.
Well, yeah, don't forget, like a WrestleMania main event went to a count out, didn't it, with The Miz and John Cena before it restarted.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be people in the comments kind of going crazy, but what Kephfas is saying is, it actually makes sense, because I understand people on a general level saying that a no contest at WrestleMania sounds ridiculous, but like Kephfas said, you have to bear in mind the context. And I agree. I actually agree with what he said, because we spoke about this last night, and it wasn't something that I'd considered, and it was exactly that. If Kephfas beats Brock Lesnar, if Obafemi beats Brock Lesnar, then where does he go from there? And the only option, because beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania is a big deal for anyone, but if he does that, the only option there is you strap the rocket to him and you just do not stop, and that is very difficult to maintain. And it could hurt Obafemi in the long run. So I understand where you're coming from. Me personally,
I even saw people saying, "Oh, he should go on to beat Brock Lesnar, and then go either go against Gunther or lose to Gunther." Some people suggested. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's a downgrade.
Exactly, it makes literally no sense to me. So that's kind of where I'm coming in with this. I mean, again, if Brock agrees to it, if Brock agrees to put Oba over, it should be by a hair. A hair.
I think that would be my preference. My preference would be 20 minutes of them just beating the ever-loving hell out of each other and Oba scraping it. Maybe Brock passes out, or maybe Oba absolutely struggles with his last breath to drape an arm over for a 3 count. Something that, like, I want to see a real struggle between these two guys.
This has to be a matchup where Oba, when he looks back at his career, he's like, yeah, this was, as a character, right? Of course, it's not we're not talking about the scripted show, as a character, he should look back and be like, yeah, that was the toughest match of my career.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts in the comments on the situation between Obafemi and Brock Lesnar potentially unfolding. A couple more segments and then we're done. Just a quick one on the women's gauntlet match for the IC title. I thought it was quite good. I thought, like we said earlier, it kind of showcased the talent that we now have in this division. With Bailey winning and facing AJ Lee next week. So still unclear on AJ Lee's plans for WrestleMania. Just a quick one on this Bailey thing. We talked about earlier that the Bailey split personality gimmick had kind of been shelved or abandoned, as it seems. She's obviously losing next week. Do you see her kind of bringing that back because of the loss and how close Lyra is to this situation? Do you see any kind of revisiting to that next week?
Honestly, I don't. They abandoned it outright, and she hasn't shown any real signs of it. She's been very giddy. It's like her kind of like her hugger character.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I think they transferred that to Sami Zayn and they're just leaving it. I think they maybe had some plans to push her, to turn her with the split personality thing and push her. But the women's division on the main roster it's across shows even. It's pretty stacked. I mean, it's like, I can see why they scrapped it. I don't think this character is coming back. I think she's going to be this, locker room hero. She's going to continue down that route. I would welcome it though. If they went back to the split personality thing, I thought it was pretty interesting.
She was good at it.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. So I don't know why they scrapped it. But I would definitely welcome it back. I do think she is going to lose though. I don't think they're going to.
Yeah. Do you think they turn Lyra? I know that something they do with a lot of NXT talent or freshly brought up NXT talent is they kind of try them out in the heel and the face. And Lyra hasn't really had a heel turn in main roster WWE or the current iteration of NXT. Do you reckon they kind of experiment with that?
If Lyra was better, more believable cutting a heel promo on the MR, I think they would. I don't know that she's there yet. She's a very likable person. She really appeals to younger people. I feel like not the older folks, but the younger people. I think they're going to keep her a face for a little while longer.
Yeah, because one of the reports that we had was that WWE's planning 6 women's matches for WrestleMania this year, and you have to think about, okay, where are these matches going to come from? And I think a Lyra Bailey match would be a nice undercard match. It's nice when they do women's feuds that don't involve a title, something NXT is really good at, and they don't really do it enough. There's always the crutch of a title, which is just the laziest way to build a storyline, but something organic that doesn't have a title involved. And I think Lyra versus Bailey potentially could be a decent little undercard match, but I don't really see where the other ones are going to come from. Potentially Io, Asuka, and Kairi might have something. I don't know if you thought about that at all.
Yeah, the women's scene right now in WrestleMania, there's so many different directions they can go in.
Yeah.
And I feel like they've dropped the ball on a couple of them. I heard Asuka and Io. I think it's a great matchup because of their history. But it's one of those matchups where I think having a title on the line is probably better for this matchup. So, and I think it might be a little too late to do Io versus Asuka. That's not to say they don't have a lot of like mingling in their storylines. I think they do, but I think the right time was when Asuka was out from injury after Damage Control fizzled out. And when she came back, I think that was the right time for her and Io to feud one-on-one.
Yeah.
I think it's a little far removed right now, but it is something people have been wanting to see. So I do, I can see them going that route. I'm really curious to see what happens with Raquel. I think she's had a breakout year. She had a breakout year last year. I feel like with the women's division, there's a lot of different routes they can take to give a good product for those who are interested.
I mean, they're sport for choice, aren't they, roster wise? I think when it comes to the EO, I think the match you do is Asuka versus Kyrie. I think that's the match
Yeah,
because that's got the most immediate story. It's got Kyrie being subservient to Asuka, who's the mentor, and there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome there. I think that's the match you do, and you give EO something else to do. But
yeah, that's a
I
good
guess we'll
match.
see. I agree with you about Raquel as well. I really think Raquel deserves to be involved in something at WrestleMania, even if she's not in a match, but if she's like heavily involved in the Liv versus Stephanie match, which I think will be really good. I think
It's
she
hard,
deserves the spotlight.
and it's hard. It's hard because there's not a lot of big women, right?
No.
You're limited. You're limited to Jade. You're limited to Rhea. You have
Mhm.
Raquel.
Nia
You don't
Jax.
have Nia Jax. You don't have like and Lash. You don't have a lot, but they're in the tag team picture. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have a lot of. I mean, unless they put Raquel and Rox in the but it's again the women's division is very very hard to predict because they have a lot of equal caliber women.
Yeah. There's only a few standouts, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah.
You got Liv, Rhea, EO, and Jade. They're probably stars in terms of
Yep.
like and then everyone else kind of fits underneath to some extent. But we've seen people like Liv go from Liv has come a long way. I remember the Ronda Rousey feud from 2022, which was just awful, and Liv winning Money in the Bank and the title, and it was a complete failure. And she's come on leaps and bounds since then, character wise, and joining the Judgment Day with Dom, and she's infinitely better. So we're hoping that that can happen to anyone potentially.
The King of the Ring, I feel like really catapulted her.
Yeah.
She's been
And
great.
Chamber last year.
Chamber
as well.
too, yeah. She's been great.
All right, last segment, Judgment Day. Speaking of Liv Morgan, I really enjoyed this. The Judgment Day implosion. I think that we knew this was coming, and we were hoping it was going to happen sooner rather than later.
My question is it really an implosion, or are they going to replace Finn?
Well, I guess it's head off the snake, isn't it? Finn is he one of the leading members? I mean, he wasn't like an OG, but he's been there the longest, I think.
Currently, in the current iteration,
and just a side topic, I always wonder, like, when the Judgment Day go into the Hall of Fame, that ring is going to be full of people. How many people are going to be in there? It's like more than the NWO turned out to be.
I don't know if this is real or not. I saw it on X, but like they're like one of the longest running factions at this point.
They are. They've lasted longer than the Bloodline, which is mad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. 3 years and 8 months, I think, Judgment Day.
And they've seen a lot of people. They've had Rhea, they've had Damian, they've had Carlito, they've had Edge, they've had a lot of people. So
well, and the reason I think they're a Hall of Fame stable is because look at how everyone went in versus how they've come out. Like Rhea Ripley is a star. Damian Priest had, for me, Damian Priest massively overachieved in what he did in the Judgment Day, winning the world title, Money in the Bank, Senior Money in the Bank. Dominic Mysterio is one of the brightest future stars they've got in the company. Finn Balor has held it all together. Liv Morgan has become a superstar. Like everyone who goes into the Judgment Day has just become infinitely better off. Raquel Rodriguez is having a breakout year as well. Right. Roxanne Perez is going to be fine. JD McDonough has been great. It's just been a fantastic stable for everyone involved.
It has. It's been this current iteration of it is very mid-card heavy.
Yeah.
So you have Liv is like the only non-mid-carder, and maybe Raquel. So I think this iteration they can improve on it. I love JD. He's awesome in the ring.
Really is. Yeah.
But he's a mid-carder. He's a firm mid-carder, and so you need to add like a main event caliber male on that team to complement the main event caliber females that you have on that team if you're going to continue it. I'm not convinced that the Judgment Day is done for.
You think it will be after WrestleMania if maybe Raquel and Liv bust up?
If you would have asked me a couple months ago, I would have told you possibly, but the way the stories have developed with Raquel and Liv, I feel like every time they tease it, they peel it back.
Do you think they did that a bit too quickly? Because I thought they had something with Raquel kind of, because Liv eliminated Raquel from the Rumble. Yeah. And I feel like they moved on from that way too fast.
Yeah, I like the work that Stephanie and Liv are doing right now.
Yeah, really
But
good. Yeah,
but I do think I still firmly hold that Raquel should have beaten Stephanie, and it should have been Raquel versus Liv.
absolutely. I agree.
I think that would have been a massive, massive women's event.
Hmm.
And that would have caused the implosion. But the way it sits right now, it's hard for me to say. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the Judgment Day. Any other faction, I would tell you they're done for.
Yeah,
Like the Vision, they're pretty much done for. I mean,
yeah,
but the Judgment Day, because they've lingered on so many years with different leadership, you had Edge, you had Damian, you kind of had like Finn has kind of been the leader. Honestly, up until recent times, it's kind of transitioned to Dom and Liv. But
hmm
at some points, it was Rhea and Damian. It was, you had kind of a dynamic leadership that was constantly changing. But the one main thing that the Judgment Day has always had in common was that their primary leadership has been main event caliber wrestlers,
yeah,
heavyweights. Right now, this is the first time in Judgment Day history that they don't have that. And so if they're going to continue the Judgment Day, they have to move it out of the existing mid card. Like its orientation currently is mid card.
hmm
You have to move it out of that. Otherwise, if you're going to keep it a mid card faction, destroy it. Like it has to end
yeah.
post WrestleMania.
And I guess you could say that Finn's recently been in the world title picture, but he's not going to be moving forward. He's not kind of like he's not going to be in the main event scene for the next 5 years, for
Right.
example.
I think Finn's going to enter the mid card picture. I think he's probably going to hold either the US or the IC title over the next several months. I don't know how, but it's likely going to happen.
And he's been great, hasn't he, Finn? He's been he's been a
Yeah.
top pro all the way through. He's been consistent. He's really good at face and heel work. He's just a really reliable guy. So
I like Finn. He is a solid character.
yeah, and me and him support the same football team as well. So
Yeah.
there's always that.
There you go.
So we're obviously going to get Finn and Dom at WrestleMania. That has to be the direction, given what we've had.
You think it's going to be a non-title or?
Well, I don't know, because I think that Dom is competing in the Rey Del Reyes prior to WrestleMania against Vikingo.
Vikingo, yeah.
So I think I'd imagine, because if Dom is the champion going into WrestleMania, then there is no logical reason why Finn wouldn't want it to be a title match.
Yeah.
And I guess if you did that, then having the AAA championship on WrestleMania is huge for AAA. Like the biggest watched wrestling event in the world, maybe ever this year. And having your world title with Finn and Dom would be massive for them. And WWE owns them now, so maybe they will do that. But it's all going to depend on Rey Del Reyes, I think.
And give it to El Grande, the original El Grande, and have him take it back to AAA. And
yeah,
you got a lot of story work there.
And I do just on that, are we finally going to get El Grande versus El Grande, Mask versus Mask at Mania? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think so.
And that's going to be great. I love this story.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great, but I am worried about, obviously, I think Chad Gable's going to win. But Ludwig is doing some amazing work, man. So like, it's part of me is like, man, if he's unmasked, what's next for him? Because I seriously doubt his next gimmick is going to be as good as this.
And this is all by happenstance, wasn't it? Like, if Chad Gable didn't get injured, this wouldn't have happened. And it's a bit like it reminds me of Kit Wilson, because if Elton Prince hadn't got injured, then we would not have this iteration of Kit Wilson. And they've struck gold. And I think they've done the same with Kaiser.
I'm honestly inclined to say that Kaiser should win and Gable should drop the mask, because Gable has more potential outside of this. And that's not to say Kaiser doesn't. He has a lot of potential, but he does really, especially because he's a fluent Spanish speaker, he does really well with this gimmick. And
he's really over in Mexico as well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic that people in Mexico love it. So, but yeah, I think also they're probably two of the best in-ring wrestlers in the company as well. They're both fantastic. But yeah, I agree. I think Chad Gable has more to do outside of that character than maybe Kaiser. I think Chad Gable's a bit more versatile.
Chad should take the US title.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
it's made for him.
Exactly. It's just like he's He's the Angle. He's just like Kurt Angle. I mean,
Yeah,
Angle is a prototype, and he is essentially Kurt Angle.
He's red, white, and blue.
Yeah, he should be U.S. champion.
Yeah, and I love heel Chad Gable. He's just so good,
and maybe
and
that's
just so funny as well.
Maybe Gable loses, and maybe he accepts the open challenge against Carmelo and takes the belt. Who knows?
I'd be for it. I'd be for it. All right, guys, we're out of time. First episode done. I want to say very big thank you to my good friend Kephfas for being my first guest.
I appreciate it. Bruce. Thank you for having me, man.
Anytime. We'll have you back anytime. Again, guys, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, make sure to like the video, subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and I'll reply to them. And we'll see you next week on Zeus Backstage.